Okay. Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Burns, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly online event where we cover any activities that may be of interest to librarians across the state. We do these sessions every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, and they are recorded, so if you're unable to attend one of these live sessions, you can always watch any of our recordings that are out there. And we do a mixture of things, presentations, interviews, little mini training sessions, whatever we can come up with. And we have commission staff that present, and we have guest speakers, as we have today. We actually have a speaker here and remote speaker across the state. This morning's NCompass Live is titled Pioneer's Progress, which is a little play on words, about the Pioneer Consortium that is being set up using Koha to do a group catalog type thing across the state. And I have Greg Mickells here sitting with us from Lincoln City Libraries, and actually I should unmute him. Steve Fosselman from Mountain Grand Island. Hold on a sec. Where are you, Steve? There we go. Okay, you're unmuted, Steve.
Okay, hi everybody.
And Steve out in Grand Island from Grand Island Public Library, who are going to tell us about all about Pioneer and what's going on and how you can get involved if you want to. Right?
Okay.
So I don't know which one of you guys want to go ahead and take it away.
Well,
Frank,
you
were the
Go ahead.
yeah you were the very first one in the door, so to speak, as a pioneer. So we do a little tag team, the two of us, on the history. And so, Greg, you can go ahead and start.
Well, the very origin of this began with the meeting I had with Ted Smith, who was then the director of Norfolk Public Library.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a meeting. We brought together some individuals that were interested in talking about open source. And we met at the Library Commission. Shannon White, who was with the commission at the time, headed up our group. And it was Ted Smith, Pam Ceriti, Stacy Aldrich, who was the assistant director at Omaha Public at the time, and myself. And we just basically began to discuss the possibilities of what might be possible to use an open source integrated library system. At that time, Evergreen had gone live in Georgia, and that's what had initiated the talk. And we began our discussion from there. Eventually, that grew to a statewide consortium or consortium talk and presentation that was done at Bellevue University that Shannon had orchestrated and put together presenters for Evergreen from Koha and a variety of other users of open source ILSs. From there, we began to meet. I believe, I don't know, Steve, I think you joined in at about that time with the discussion. And I think our group grew to about 25 people at the time that were around the table to discuss the possibilities of what was possible, what products were out there, and how we could approach this project. Eventually, that group narrowed down. We began to limit it to public libraries, and the group had decided to pursue Koha as the option. And that group was whittled down to about 7 libraries, included Grand Island, Lincoln City Libraries. Pam Ceriti stayed on from Holdridge. We had Gretna at the time, Bellevue, Omaha, and St. Paul. Right. From that group, we did a scoping study, thanks to a grant from the Library Commission, and looked at the possibility. And out of those 7, 4 elected to move forward to look at implementing the project. At that time, we contracted with a service provider called PTFS. Since then, PTFS had acquired LibLime, who was another major service provider for Koha open source. And that pretty much brings us right up to the present. We recently went live on Koha, and up on the screen you'll see, if you come to Lincoln City Library's catalog, what you would be greeted with at this point. We went live on May 4th, and the last of the 4, Holdridge, just this past week went live. So all 4 libraries now, you went Lincoln City Libraries, Grand Island, St. Paul, and then Holdridge was the final one. So all 4 libraries are up and running on the system right now. Did you want to add anything at that at this point, Steve?
Just wanted to add that we were really just a group of libraries that didn't even have an organization back before 2009. And it was in the middle of 2009 that we all decided to get interlocal agreements. We started a consortium council, and the 7 voting members became 4 voting members when everything was all concluded, and the 4 of us decided to migrate together. But ever since 2009, we've had a really good succession of organizing in order to get to the point where not only we do have a product, but we have a structure. And I think together with the technical work and the membership work, they all melt into an organization, I think, that has a lot of stability for the future.
How did Go Live go? I know people logged into this presentation probably are interested in that fact. It was a struggle. I'll be honest. It didn't go smooth. We're still working out a lot of kinks, particularly with Lincoln City Libraries. Lincoln City Libraries was somewhat of a unique entry into the Koha field with PTFS in that we had a main library with several branches. So we had to make sure that the product would work with that configuration. In addition to that, we selected to have one instance of Koha. So besides Lincoln City Libraries with its main library and branch locations, we do have Grand Island, Holdridge, and St. Paul all sharing the same instance of Koha. We did that for a reason. One was it created a union catalog. So eventually down the line, we'll have the capabilities of perhaps centralized cataloging for the group. We might be looking at centralized purchasing of databases among the membership.
Nice.
And also centralized acquisitions, perhaps even further down the road. So it's been a challenge to initiate the product under one instance and to deal with the issues of having a multiple branch system as part of that at this point. But we're trying to take the long-term view of what the advantages will be for setting it up in this manner.
Also, I really appreciate even more the decision that was made a long time ago to call this group Pioneer Consortium. We really are the first 4 libraries, so to speak, to cut through that prairie grass. And when you do that, the first time you cut through it, it's not easy. And it'll be a lot easier for the libraries coming on because of all the decisions that have been made. Some additional development that has been done already, and we're talking about doing, because being an open source product, this is the entire community. It's a worldwide community that helps shape this software, and so every time a new group comes on and we find out that there are different needs, then the product gets better. And I have a feeling that our consortium, the Pioneer Consortium, along with about 3 or 4 other consortia that have come online at about the same time, we've all stumbled upon the need to make some tweaks, and having done that, I think it's really going to be an excellent product.
Yeah, you guys have done the hard work. Now all the other libraries can come on. We'll benefit from that.
We were also very fortunate of where the founding membership was composed of a variety of size of libraries.
Yes. So you can get
Lincoln,
the picture of what little libraries need compared to what the big, like the Lincoln
exactly.
City multi-branch needs, yeah.
As opposed to St. Paul, which is a relatively small collection. It also enlightened us to what is required going into membership with Pioneer as far as the status of your current database. To give you an example, St. Paul, being such a small system, they were currently running on Winnebago.
Oh, okay.
And part of that was they didn't have barcodes. They didn't have ISBN numbers on a lot of it. And so migrating that information from their database into this larger database posed some real challenges. And that's one of them that we're still working on. But it really gave us an idea of how this product would scale to the larger libraries and yet to the smaller libraries at this point. I can't see Steve, so I never know if he wants, if you want to respond to that or not.
We do have a question. What is this PTSF? What is that? Is that an acronym for something in particular?
Correct. That's
that company.
Progressive Technology Federal System, and they were primarily known for their archiving software, which is their principal industry. Right now, the company is technically known as LibLime, a division of PTFS.
LibLime I've heard of, yes.
Right. When PTFS did acquire LibLime, they also acquired the current product that LibLime had, which was an enterprise version of Koha at the time, sometimes referred to LLEK, LibLime Enterprise Koha.
Okay.
And the advantage to that, and one of the reasons why we looked toward PTFS as the service provider for Pioneer, was one, they were an established company. They had tremendous resources behind them. Two, they had just acquired LibLime, and along with LibLime were a lot of the development that went into the Koha product. So the current version of Koha that Pioneer is actually running is a variation off of the community version that is available universally, although our version through PTFS is also available for a free download.
And that's how the whole open source community works. You know, you do the tweaks you need for yours, and then anyone who wants to can get that as well for themselves.
Correct.
If they maybe need to run the same way you are. Yeah.
And Steve had mentioned earlier about various other consortiums working with Koha. We've been in contact with a lot of those, and we do a lot of collaborative ideas as far as what type of development would be needed. Probably the largest, one of the largest that just went live right before Pioneer was the South Central Library System, which is headquartered out of Madison, Wisconsin. And Madison is comparable size to Lincoln, and its library system is about the same size. So I've been talking a lot with their project manager, and they're currently running the same version of Koha that we are right now. There's also a fairly large group out of the Northeast called Waldo,
Yes.
which is a group
West
primarily
Germany.
of, correct, of academic libraries. They've been doing a lot of development as well. And there's a group out of Colorado called Click that we've been visiting with, and just another large one out of northern Texas that we've been in contact with.
This is a huge trend, obviously.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
One other question I have here is, what did you mean by first instance when you were talking about setting it up?
Oh, okay.
I guess
one instance.
Well,
actually, instead of first, I should have
yeah,
said one instance. What that means is we've downloaded the Koha software once, and everybody is set up on that. To give you another scenario of how it could be set up, Wisconsin, that I mentioned earlier, South Central Library System, they have 53 libraries in their consortium. What they have elected to do is download 53 instances of Koha. So each of their member libraries has their own instance. Now,
like their own installation of it?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And there's some advantages to having your own instance of the product, and one of them is setting up policies. As we were configuring the system, what we had to do as a consortium a lot of times was make group decisions.
And everybody has to agree to do the same thing in each library.
Correct. There is some autonomy and local authority to some of the policies among the membership of the consortium, but there are some decisions that had to be made.
You have to all agree, yeah.
And we had to all agree. Fortunately, it's a good group of people with Grand Island, Holdridge, and St. Paul, and it was a good discussion that we had as far as working out a lot of the issues. So future members into Pioneer will be looking toward that same type of collaborative spirit as well.
And it was really, really good discussion, and several discussions about what kinds and the names of I-types, collection codes, that sort of thing. But even within that, if there's uniqueness in a library, then that uniqueness shows through in the names of the I-types. For instance, if a library has cake pans, then there's a way to have cake pans reflected in the collection. And so uniqueness is important to all of us, and where we can be uniform, that's important as well.
I thought I'd just log in just to kind of give you an idea of what the customer would see when they're using the Pioneer Koha product. This is specifically for Lincoln City Libraries, and I just what we do encourage our customers to do, although it's not necessary to search the catalog, we do encourage them to log in, and each of your customers or patrons will have their library card number as their login, and then they'll select a PIN to access their account. When I log into my account, this is where it takes me. As you can see from the top, staff have an opportunity to leave a personal message to the patron. For instance, this was a message that I had left my library card at Benham Martin. Please ask for it at the service desk. And it gives the date that the message was posted. It also shows if you're in arrears on your account. Now, I've been working a lot and doing a lot of just sample tests, so I do have some overdues on my account. I'm usually more diligent with that. But what it will show you when you log into your account, first of all, is the current status. And this pink area immediately alerts you that you have a variety of items overdue. And that's what that colored area represents. And then one book that isn't due yet isn't in that same field. You can look at a variety of details about your account. You can look at your fine details if you want, and that's what I owe right now in overdues. You can check on the status of your holds. I've got 2 holds right now. It shows where I'm at in the queue and that the status is pending. And then you can go into your personal details. And the customer can make edits for this, but it will have to be approved for a librarian. So in other words, we don't want someone necessarily changing their date of birth or something like that.
You think that would have been put in when you first signed up and that wouldn't change, right. Yes.
If you'd want to find out what that 3150 was all about, you can go into My Finds, and it gives you a real detailed examination of your account. And then it also gives you a history of certain items that were placed on your account and how those issues had been resolved.
So if you paid something, it would you'd see that your payment history when you had covered.
Exactly, exactly. But the nice thing about
Greg,
this,
you're a typical library user. Look at you.
I am. I don't always get them back in time, and Lincoln City Library staff don't get a break. So we have to pay our fines as well as anyone else. But what's kind of nice about this is that this is just all on my own. So I could be home looking at my account and seeing what the status is, looking at what my history is. And speaking of history, one of the features that people really liked about Koha was that you can keep track of your reading history. Now this is a patron selected option. If patrons choose not to keep their reading history, they don't have to.
I know for some people that would be a privacy concern. They don't want it saved.
Correct.
But if you like to use it for some reason, to remember what you did.
We have a lot of people that like to have the list to make sure they read that particular mystery or not. But as you can see, it's a customer selected option. I could click no, and if I click no and hit save, my entire history would disappear.
I do like us seeing there at the bottom that you've got the agreement that it does specifically remind people, which I think is something that people don't know, that library staff will not release this information or look at it. It is just,
correct.
It is, even though it's being saved there, the law says it's just for you. So staff will keep it private for you.
Right now it keeps it in date order, but whenever, since this is a web-based product, whenever you see something in blue and roll over, you get the opportunity to click. So I could click on title and it will rearrange my reading list by title order. Gives you an idea of my hold history. I don't have any filled holds. I did have some canceled holds earlier when I was doing a demonstration, and those show up as well. At any time, I could go up into the catalog and enter my search term. And this is the display of the catalog that we have right now. There's the search term is highlighted throughout the item list, or you can click on unhighlight if you don't want that particular feature. Currently, Koha is signed up with Amazon to provide cover art. And also by clicking on the cover, it will also take you to Amazon for further information about the product. One of the advantages that you have in this screen is you can click a number of titles. Say I was interested in those particular ones. I can do a variety of things with those. I can click on place hold, for instance, and it will place all the items that I clicked on hold instead of doing them one at a time. And then I have a feature, well, we reduced the box to keep the screen, so,
okay.
but There's an add to feature here where I could take those 5 items and add them into my cart. I'm just going to expand this just a little bit real quick and I'll get you back. So as you can see, I added those 5 items that I clicked to the cart, which also gives you, then you can look at your cart. This is really a nice idea for students because they can begin to build a bibliography. And then actually, if they want, they can click and have those emailed to their home account or print them off. You also have the capability of doing an RSS feed. And I'm not quite sure how this is going to be set up on your particular situation. On mine, it goes to Google Reader. So
right, it's going to depend on how you have your browser set up for doing your RSS.
But what you can do is essentially I could set up Mushrooms, my search, as an RSS feed. So whenever Lincoln City Library's got a new book on mushrooms, for instance, that information would be pushed to my account and I'd be notified of it. There's also an option of creating lists, and you can do this by, you can create a public list or you can create a private list. And as you can see, I had done one earlier with mushrooms that shows up here. One of the, you can also check on what's currently available. So instead of going into each item to see where it's located and if it is available, you can click on that and it'll only show you the ones that are available. When you
so
go,
you need something immediately, you'll only get the ones you can actually check out right now.
Correct. Yeah. And when you go to a title, this is to the display. You do have some optional ways of looking at this information. You can see the holdings for this particular title are available at Bennett Martin and at the Gear branch, and both of them show it as available. And again, from this point, if I'd want to place a hold on this, I could do it from this screen as well. There's some additional information that you can gain, like title notes, comments. This is where the patron can actually add their own comment on the book. And that's monitored by a librarian, whether or not it's kept or not. And then occasionally there'll be Amazon reviews available that will be published as well.
Now, if you use this to add your reviews, adding it to Amazon or adding it to your libraries, only the looking at it
the
here.
comments area would add it to the Pioneer
right.
version, and the Amazon reviews would
add it to Amazon.
Would be adding it to Amazon.
So you could have people start, if people start using that comment section here, you could have within your own Pioneer system reviews from local people saying, you know, people locally using it.
Correct.
Rather than just all the ones out in Amazon. That's cool.
But there's a lot of nice features that we didn't have available in our previous ILS that gain some advantages of our Pioneer customers.
Mm-hmm. That comment area, that's a really good example of good social networking, and tags are a great example of how the customer is as involved in the catalog as the librarians and the staff are, and building this into really a dynamic database of good user information for getting the right book at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it has where they can, patrons can add tags to the individual?
There is.
Oh, cool.
You can add tags to it. You can keep track when you go back to your own account. And a lot of customers can create lists. Mm-hmm. For instance, we created one for the One Book, One Lincoln to give you the titles there. But you can see sometimes these are created by staff and sometimes just individuals from the public that they want to share their public lists. And then you can go into managing that. If you ever want to go back to your account, again, there I am logged in up there, and I can just click on my name and it'll take me back to that initial one. Now, this particular one, I'm using Chrome as my browser. For the public, Internet Explorer or Firefox or any of the others, Mosaic, will work for that. Once you get into the staff portion of it, it's more important to be browser specific. And PTFS and Koha recommend that you use Firefox to do circulation functions. But it's a very simple layout as far as what the capabilities are. You can just start checking out right from this screen by scanning in a library card number. Or if you need to search for a patron, you can do that. And if there were more than one Greg Mickells or whatever, it would come up. And then you can just click on that, and that will put you in access to your patron's account. It's the information, gives you all the details on the individual's account. You can then go into checkout mode. Another option that's available to our patrons and is duplicated here on this, but actually this is controlled by the customer themselves, is how they would like to be notified. We strongly suggest that most of your patrons try to sign up for email accounts to have their notification done by email. We're currently in the process of setting up a telephone notification system, the same one that we had with our previous ILS, but we needed to make some upgrades and modifications in order for it to work with Koha. So that particular feature is down right now, but the email notification is available to the customers currently. The advance notice has been a really nice feature with our customers. What this does is basically 3 days before an item's actually due, I will receive an email message that say, that book is going to be due in 3 days. So it gives me a heads up. Our previous system didn't really notify people until it was already over.
Already late. It's already too late by then, yeah.
And this system will follow up with that as well. It'll let you know when holds are waiting for you. If you'd want to have all of your check-in materials emailed to you, or your checked out materials, if you want that list emailed to you, you can check these boxes as well, and they will allow you to, the system will allow you to do that as well. It also gives the staff member a complete history of the status of my materials that I have checked out at this time. And somewhat like the patron account, it will give details on the various aspects. The messaging is another feature that's kind of nice as well. You can see the history of what we have communicated to this particular patron, myself. So here's all the notices I received. I did know that those items were going to be overdue, and
You still didn't renew them.
it let me know. I purposely let them go overdue because I wanted to see what additional notifications. So it lets you know how to do that. It will also allow you to, as you could see from my personal account, this was a message that a staff member had typed in this area to let me know. So when I log in to my personal account, it said you left your card.
This is nice then from the staff side. I mean, Koha, it's obviously installed on some server somewhere, but as far as staff doing all the work, it's just totally web-based.
Correct.
So there's no, like, on your computer at your library, you have to install some sort of software to be able to get into your system and to do any of your work from the staff side. It's just go to a web page and you're there.
And that's one of the advantages we're looking at to have with selecting a product like Koha, was that it was web-based. So essentially, if you were doing any remote locations and you wanted to check out materials, if you had Wi-Fi access, you could go into and use the system in that capacity.
We already had a test of what happens when you don't have internet access. So if the internet goes down, what do? There was a 2-day time period while we were migrating that we used the Koha offline circulation software, and that was just worked perfect for us. Just being able to check out materials to people, and you can't see their patron record and change their record, but you can still check out, so you're not having to use slips of paper and legal pad to record that information. So that worked out great. So if every once in a while the internet goes down, you're not left stranded then.
That's nice. They have a good backup system for that. That's good.
And where is our server? We're actually using a cloud service. We're part of the Amazon cloud.
Ah, okay. Yes.
PTFS has server space allocated to us on EC2. And when Steve was talking about the internet going down, that was EC2.
Yes. I remember that. It was in the news, actually. Yes.
Yes. PTFS is based out of Washington, D.C. area, and so their servers are located on the North Virginia EC2 regional, and that's exactly the region that went down.
Bad luck.
It was. But it was a learning experience. We weren't live. Actually, Wisconsin had just gone live like the day before this went down. And I did on the, just to give you, while we were talking, I went back to the staff portion, and if you wanted to check out to me, this is what staff would encounter. There's an audible beep when you go to checkout for this.
Was that beep that I heard?
That
I wasn't sure
beep.
where that came from. If it was you or Steve or what. Okay.
No, that was the beep here. So there's an audible beep to alert staff members that there's an issue with this account. And then in red, it makes it pretty obvious that I have items overdue. We have a limitation that if you have over $15 in outstanding funds, you can't check out items. I've got $31.50, so I'm definitely not eligible to check out. The staff does have the option to do a variety of things here. They can make a payment if the customer is there to do it, and they can override at this point.
Can patrons do online payments if they're at home and need to pay their fines, or is that not in here?
We don't have that set up yet.
Okay.
Right now, Lincoln City Libraries does have the possibility of doing credit or debit card payments on our self-check machines.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's good.
Another offshoot of this, and Lincoln City Libraries is more than happy to share the technology, is that we've, in conjunction with Koha, we've developed house-built self-check machines. So instead of necessarily purchasing a fairly expensive version from a vendor, we've been able to put these machines together at a relatively low price, and we build them in-house to perform self-check functions. We'll soon be exploring the possibility of adding card readers to those machines as well. So that's been a huge advantage for allowing some flexibility with people to pay their fines. Almost everybody comes and has a debit card these days.
Pretty much, yeah.
Instead of cash or a check.
Mm-hmm.
And down below was that little feature that I mentioned before. So I could add another message to Gregory to let him know about something else, or since they're at the desk the staff member could delete that message that they retrieved their card.
Once they've gotten it, yeah. I do have a question that came in, and I actually think I know the answer to this question. Does using Pioneer Koha make the use of CAT Express a duplication of service? And that would be no. Koha is just your ILS for doing your local cataloging and your circulation and things like that. CAT Express is a service from OCLC where you get the MARC records to put into your local catalog, and where you add your holdings to OCLC's WorldCat so that other people in the world know that you have it if you do interlibrary loan and lend to them, or if your users at your library use First Search as a database, the database that the Commission offers, your patrons will see that your library owns something if they're using First Search to do their searching and to do their research. So these are not the same thing at all. They're two completely different services. CAT Express is to get your hold of your MARC records and add your holdings to WorldCat. Koha is your local circulation, acquisitions, cataloging module.
And part of the consortium, we haven't been able to get to this point yet because we've all been busy going live with it. But the consortium will be starting up like a cataloging group among its members.
Cool.
And right now, since going back to doing the selection of one instance of Koha, what Lincoln City Libraries could do is add a bib record to the Union catalog, and then the members, instead of having to redo cataloging or whatever, can just do their holdings.
Add their holdings to that record that's
add
in
to
there.
the record.
Yeah.
So we still haven't quite figured out how we're going to do that process. That's still a little bit down the road that we'll be working on.
I think some of what this question is coming from is there are other systems like Follett or something that will, along with having your local ILS, will provide you with MARC records as an extra part or something. You're timing out. And that's not what's built. That's not how Koha, or how at least how you guys have it set up. It's not similar to how some other ILSs have that little extra service or product that you can add on to your local system to get the MARC records.
It's difficult for me to answer that one since I'm not a cataloger. So I wouldn't want to provide any misinformation about the inputting of records.
There may be ways of, there's obviously ways of getting your MARC records that are not CAT Express, of course. You can go to Library of Congress for free. There's tons of different things, no problem.
And Koha is Z3950 compatible.
Cool, there, that makes it easy too, yeah.
And I haven't explored it, Greg, but Koha has access to free bibliographic records, quite an extensive group of them. But if you're already using CAT Express, or you're already a full cataloging library or any version that you have, then at this time our consortium doesn't have a consortial answer for that. But in time we might.
And getting the MARC records so that they're in your local system is one thing. Adding your holdings to OCLC so that you can loan it to other libraries outside of your group and for your users to see it in other databases that OCLC provides, like First Search, is a whole separate thing. So there's actually two different issues to think about when you're trying to figure out what do I want to pay for or not pay for. So those are two things to weigh. And someone actually is asking a question here that kind of relates to that, is that since the 4 libraries share a catalog, couldn't you borrow from the member libraries, like within just the Pioneer group, without using outside ILL, like OCLC or anything? Is that somehow at all in here? Or could it be, I guess maybe is also a different question.
It could be. That's another reason for going with one instance, is that the records of the members' libraries, the holdings, do show up when you're doing a search.
Yeah.
So even if you're in Lincoln, I could see that Grand Island might be the owner of that title as well. Further down the road, it would be very nice if the consortium would be able to set up some type of courier or delivery service
that would have
among our libraries,
yeah.
and so that we could have delivery among the members. Wisconsin, at this point, does have that set up. They have a courier that goes among the 53 members, and so they do have it set up that if, say, just using the Nebraska example, if I was in Lincoln and wanted to borrow a book from Grand Island, I would just put a hold on it from there and Grand Island would send it here. At this point, we're still using our traditional ILL as far as interlibrary loan. We're not at the point of doing that kind of membership sharing at this, but
one thing at a time.
one thing at a time.
And one advantage that some other consortia have is that they were actually formed before they went to an open source system.
True, they already had this thing set up beforehand. Yeah, it was already in place. Correct. Yeah.
Right, and we're doing it at the same time, and so our progress will definitely take off after we get everything really stable with the ILS itself. And I think that in coming years you can see a lot of good discussions coming from not only Pioneer but nationwide about different ways of doing things that are more cost effective.
Oh yeah.
And one of the advantages with having an open source product is that we can do development on our own and specific to our needs. So a good example of that, one of the challenges that we faced when Lincoln City Libraries went live was our response time. And by response time was the time it took for us to scan in an item at checkout and complete that transaction was really a lengthy amount of time when we first went live. Since that time, PTFS has done some additional development. South Wisconsin has done some additional development. So in a short amount of time, that response time has been greatly reduced. So it gives you an idea of what's available with the system. If there's something that isn't quite working the way you want it, there are some options to perhaps correct that.
I know we actually have somebody asking, and we did want to talk about this, about how do other libraries get into the Pioneer group? What does it, how much does it cost? How does it all work? What
Sure.
should you do? All that kind of thing.
That would be Steve's.
Okay.
And for that, if you can pass control to me, I'll show you a couple things.
I sure can. Hold on just a second here. Where are you, Steve? There you go. You should be getting the pop-up for you to take over.
Okay, and so what everybody should be seeing on their screen is a blog.
Okay. We'll just click OK on the bottom.
Can you see that? You can see that?
I can. Yep, no problem.
Okay, good. And you see up on the top, you see I've highlighted the URL for the blog, and I'm just really excited to explain to anybody that you can get a lot of information about Pioneer through this blog that we're grateful to Lincoln City Library for setting this blog up. And so on this area here, you're going to see some updating information, Pioneer's progress from this last week, and we're starting to work with additional libraries. But I'm going to go to a tab that I set up just yesterday, and just in time for today's meeting. Now you can get information about membership. And so here's that little historic information about our 4 libraries, and I'll click on application and assurances requirements. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on steps toward membership and migration. And just a few steps. There's a letter of interest, there's an application and assurances form. The Pioneer Council actually votes and approves you for membership. And then there's a joint entity agreement that has to be signed by your local governance. In our case, we have our city council approve this. There's a $250 orientation fee that's paid, and at that point you are actually a voting member of the Pioneer Consortium. And so right now we actually have 10 members, 10 voting members, the original 4 and then 6 others. Then in the meantime, then you're going to be reviewing all your data and making weeding decisions. You'll be doing an order to migrate records, and typically that would be like a purchase order, like you would normally do for ordering supplies at your library. You'll be working with the committee that I'm on, the membership committee, and the committee that Greg is on, the technical committee, and PTFS. All three work with you to come up with a schedule for migration, and then you're actually put into the real good, capable hands of the technical committee and PTFS. And so I'll go back and we'll look at the application and assurances. It's a form that gives you a really good idea of self-qualifying, in a way, for this consortium. We don't have real stringent requirements, but you'll see that there's a shared responsibility that we have. The letter of interest, accreditation, the library needs to have a catalog in place with MARC records and to be able to accept a web-based system. And there are ways to work toward that so that eventually you can become a member of the consortium. And then there's also additional assurances that go into the cost so that you know up front what's happening. There's that $250 orientation fee. There is a 15-cent per bib record migration cost, and that includes all the deduping, all the quality control. It's based on the number of bib records, but it includes all of your patron records, all of your circulation records, your overdue records, your bills, and all the fees that you owe. Everything that you had in your old system gets moved over to the new system. There's a one-time database setup charge based on the number of bib records you have. So if you're in a fairly small library that has less than 25,000 records, you'll pay $750. And then there's a annual maintenance fee. It's a pro rata fee, and it's based on everybody in the group and 4 different criteria: legal service area, operating revenues, collection size, and circulation. So everybody gets all 4 of those criteria put in and mixed through, and then whatever your percentage is what you owe every year. And it's a minimum of $350. And we're going to have several libraries that are going to be at that minimum. And we want to make sure that all the libraries know that these are the basic charges. There's not very much in our budget for things like development and for what we call central library reimbursement, which we actually agree with the Lincoln City Library that they will be like a central help desk to be a bridge between PTFS, which we're paying for them to solve the problems that we might be having for software and for other functionality. And the local library at the same time is responsible for things that you're normally responsible for: your own internet costs, PC workstations that you have. If you're the person in your library that is the IT person, then you're it for this project too. And so through this shared responsibility, we can make sure that we have a really well-functioning consortium and we can keep the costs low. So those are the types of decisions that a local library is going to be making this year.
Steve, can I just interrupt for a second? While you're on the pricing issue, I do have a question. The 15,
Yes.
the 15 cents, someone wants to know, is for bib records only, and the rest of the records, like borrower records, anything else, item records, is all just for free? Is that how it is?
Yeah. They had to make a decision on how to base the pricing, and rather than make it extremely complicated, they made it easy for us, easy for the local library to make a decision on how much it's going to cost. I actually have some information on how you can estimate your costs, and you can always give me a call or email me if you would like a little bit more exact quote. There's grants that could be available on an annual basis. There were this last year, and several libraries that are moving forward with Koha have received grants. And I'll show you the membership list here. These are all the members that have actually done the joint entity agreement and paid the orientation fee, plus the 4 original libraries. And so we have all these libraries that are actual voting members right now, and 4 of them have actually migrated, and we're going to start working with the other to migrate this summer and fall. And give you an example here. That for this library, in a sample size of 344 and all the way up through 1600, because of the number of bib records they had and their circulation and their legal service area, the first year maintenance fee is $350. Migration fee was about $3,000 for this sample library. They owed $750 for the setup fee and $250 for the orientation fee. And so on a non-grant basis, they spent about $4,400 in the first year. And if they received a grant, then they may have only had to spend 25% of that. So it can get a little bit confusing as to how to cost something out, and so I'm very happy to work with any library that's interested in the cost components and figuring out what I call a 7-year investment, because really that's the best way to judge any kind of product you have, whether it's a piece of equipment or a service or an ILS. Anything else that you would like to see about membership?
Anybody have any other questions about membership, or has Steve kind of covered the basics of it? You know where to go now to this, to the blog here, lclpioneer.wordpress.com, and that will get you anything and everything you need to know about how it's going, how to join up. Obviously, as Steve has said, contact him if you really want to know, if you do have questions. Doesn't look anything. Go ahead.
I'll just add one thing. I have a tab here on Pioneer Council. I'm no longer president of the council. Pat Leach with Lincoln City Libraries is president, and then we have these officers here, and then we have these committees. And so the organization is, you can get information about the organization here, get information about membership here. You go to here and you're going to get a lot of what's happening with the, technically, and in time there may be a tab for the technical committee, so that really nuts and bolts of how to migrate, for instance, might be in there.
And that shows so, that this is actually really a group thing. It's not just the founding libraries running everything forever.
No.
Everybody will have a chance to have that kind of involvement in how it's being done.
Yeah, the operating decisions are now made by 10 libraries instead of 4. Mm-hmm. And next year it'll be more and more. Mm-hmm. And we have not yet decided as a consortium how to do the invitations for 2012. I know there are some non-public libraries that are really interested in belonging. We'll have to see how it goes. The preliminary thought is to open it up to non-public libraries in 2012. As our experience grows and more libraries migrate, then we can judge by the end of this year how to open up invitations for 2012.
Nice.
Just to give you a quick update of the current status of Pioneer. As been discussed earlier, we do have the 4 founding members already live. They went live on Koha. As Steve mentioned, we do have some others in the queue that will be looking to migrate fairly soon. Where we're at presently, though, is trying to figure out and stabilize the system better right at this point. Lincoln City Libraries is having some issues with its holds right now.
Yes, I've heard.
And trying to work out those issues coming up at the end of this week. Just to give you an idea of our service provider and also the nature of the product, how fluid it is and how often it changes. Coming up at the end of this week, they'll already be pushing new code into the system that will alleviate a lot of the issues that we're having with our holds right now.
Cool, yeah.
So,
that's one thing that you hear a lot about open source, the quick response.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's tailored specifically to your needs.
Exactly, yep.
So it's not necessarily another library under a proprietary system that might be large enough to kind of push a particular development. It's every member in the Pioneer Consortium has a voice. And that goes as far as development and what we want the Pioneer catalog to be looking like.
And I should also mention, we have those additional 6 voting members. Probably within a couple of weeks we'll have 3 more voting members. So it's pretty fluid. There are libraries that almost a year ago were interested in, and they are allowed to take their time to make their decision as to when they want to join. And so we'll continue to work with all the libraries that get through those different steps, and as they do, then we can work toward migration for those libraries. And also, that is right, Greg. We're looking forward to, as all systems have, they have some kind of an acceptance sign-off, and with continued progress toward all these fixes and all these codes that are being pushed. I saw within the last week, I think there were at least 2 pushes, and over the last month probably several more, and that's just phenomenal progress. And it used to be in our old system that you could wait years for something to get changed.
And that's what's great about this, what you're just saying earlier, is that it wasn't that every library who wanted to be in it had to be ready to go on the same day. You could do it at your own speed. If this is something that today you're saying, wow, it's cool, but I know it's going to scare the crap out of a bunch of people here, so maybe we could gradually acclimate them to the idea, and we'll be with you in 6 months or something. That's totally the way it can work. That's the idea, yeah.
Definitely.
Come in when you're ready.
It's on your schedule.
Yep.
There's a lot of flexibility working with the current service provider. For instance, we do have a trainer in Nebraska right now from PTFS. She arrived yesterday. She spent yesterday in Lincoln. She'll actually be in Grand Island all of today, and then on Thursday she'll be back in Lincoln. So a lot of hands-on there where staff are interacting directly. She's doing a lot of demonstrations of how to take advantages, and she's also looking at our workflow at this point and see how well that matches up with Koha and what changes we need to make or what changes we need to make to the Koha system for it to work better for us.
And that the trainer is actually in the other room working with some of my staff and staff from Holdridge and St. Paul, and they seem to be having a really good time. So, and also their Lincoln has somehow digitally taped training sessions that were WebEx sessions with PTFS, and those can come in really handy for a new library coming on some just real basic competencies that you want to make sure that you understand about each of the modules.
Mm-hmm. And actually, if you just want a basic overview of Koha and functionality, if you contact me, I'd be happy to send you one of the DVDs that we recorded of the training session that gave a general overview of Koha.
Because we did have a question, actually. We haven't had any new questions come in about membership, so it looks like you explained it pretty well, I guess, Steve, or at least to their needs at the moment. But we did have an earlier question about wanting to look at the acquisitions module. I'm not sure. It's about quarter after now if you want to do that, or if you want to just have them.
That would be something if they want to contact us later.
Okay, yeah.
I'd get it. Actually, the trainer that's in that's what she's working on with staff presently, is the acquisitions and the cataloging modules.
Okay, so Jake, you asked about that. Contact Greg at Lincoln Cities, and he can get you some information on looking at that, the acquisitions module. The only other outstanding question we had was about the book covers and other third-party information. Where is that coming from? And I think earlier you had said it was Amazon.
We're using Amazon.
So that's actually at the consortium level, not individual library level.
Correct.
It's coming from there.
It happens to be a free service. There are services that the consortium could use that are fee-based, and we'll be waiting to make a decision whether we stay with Amazon or go to a different system. But so far, so good with Amazon.
I'm stealing control back from you.
Hey, great.
So you know. Cool. Okay. We haven't had any questions come in while we've been talking in the last 5 or 10 minutes here. So, and I think we have responded to all of them that were here. If nobody has anything last they want to ask or say, type it in, let us know. If either of you guys have anything more you want to say to wrap it up.
Happy to answer any and all questions that you might have about the project or about the functionality of Koha. Just let me know.
Yes. Either one of us. Greg is very, very helpful on the technical side. I can get you through the membership side, and I'll stay non-technical.
I guess in closing, I'd like to add thanks to the Nebraska Library Commission for giving us this venue to talk about the project and why we became interested in becoming pioneers.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I saw that you guys had presented on this at last fall's NLA NEMA annual conference, and I said, oh, this would be something people who couldn't attend conference are going to want to know and hear about, and especially if you all want more people joining up. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
We do have a question. What's your email address that they should use?
It is g.mickells@lincolnlibraries.org. I don't know if there's a way of putting that on the screen or not.
Obviously, we're looking for technical information here, so you're safe, Steve, at the moment. There you go. He's typing it into the library catalog search.
There you go.
Don't search for that. I don't know what you'd find. Probably nothing.
Be curious. Yeah.
And if anybody wants to get a hold of me on non-technical membership type of information, my email address is sf@gilibrary. sf@gi.lib.ne.us.
Okay. And I assume also this contact information is on that WordPress site as well, if people are really needing to go find you.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
LCL, the lclpioneer.wordpress.com. Is it com or org? Yeah.
Good question. I think it's org.
We'll link to it in our recording when we put this up. There.
Okay.
We will
Thank
have
you.
a link to the Pioneer website's blog there that we were showing when we put up the recording for this. So I think we'll wrap it up then. No more last questions except for that email question. We are a little bit over, but that's fine. Thank you very much, Greg and Steve. This was great. I'm so glad that you were able to both show up here in person and remotely, Steve, our virtual Steve, to get this information out to people. Contact them if you do have any more questions or info. Like I said, when the recording goes up, it will have the information about the website, so you'll be able to go there for all the details, the membership information, the contact information for you. And
Thanks for having us today.
Thank you. Hope you'll join us next week when we're doing 23 things for professional development is our topic. This is part of our Nebraska Learns 2.0 program, which is our ongoing learning program that we have here at the Commission, where we've been doing it with one thing a month. Every month we give you a new resource or service that you can try out. There's this new thing that has been created by librarians, mostly by a group of librarians over in Cambridge in United Kingdom, but it's available for anyone in the world to do this 23 things for professional development, one new thing a week, and we are going to be joining them for that between now and October when it ends. So they're going to be joining us on NCompass Live next week from England to talk about this new project that we'll be joining in. So sign up and join us next week for that NCompass Live. And people are saying thank you.
Okay.
So thank you very much, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, and we'll see you next week.
Great.